Hi, folks. My name is Girish, the host for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics for another week. Today, we're going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about fitness health. We're going to talk about nutrition health, anything but not that, obviously. We're going to talk about well-being, the wellness being of the way we are today. During COVID, after COVID, I'm not really sure, but we'll get into that episode today and we'll figure that out when we get into that call. But there's one thing that I can guarantee you, we'll be talking about mental health for sure and how we're dealing with it in these times today. So let's welcome Jeffrey into the show and let's discuss a little further. Jeffrey, how are you? And thanks for coming Back to Basics.
Hey, thank you for having me here. Excited to get to chat and talk about, as you said, all the different facets of health.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again. So before we get into the topic and the wellness being and everything else and mental health, what does Back to Basic mean to you?
The foundation of people's health is some pretty simple things, right? It is really just about diet, rest, exercise, sleep, stress management. Those are the basics. And yet they're so difficult to do consistently well. And so much of my work is just helping to support people to do those basic things, the things that every single body, and I say body as in, physical body, needs to do on a regular basis, but to do them with intention, with consciousness, and with responsibility for the consequences of your choices that you're making. And so I think, the basics really are, 95%. And I think we live in a culture that loves getting caught up in trying to kind of optimize and maximize for that last little percent, but most of our results and most of our health and our happiness are born by going back to the basics and really mastering these fundamentals of well-being.
Yeah, thank you again, Jeffrey, for answering that question and in a basic and a simpler way. And hopefully people will listen and understand that the world that we live in, it is a complex world. And we just want to make it simple and basic. And how do we make that? That's the real tool that we need to figure that out. So thank you again for that. Mm-hmm. So Jeffrey, before we start all the detailed stuff about the wellness and the mental health and nutrition and fitness and all that, let me ask you, let's tell the audience, who are you and what do you do and what are you all about, Jeffrey?
Yeah. So I'm a health coach and I specialize in helping people develop a better relationship with their body. And so really looking at this intersection of physical health and mental health, of mind and body, and then looking at it broadly, holistically, within the context of your relationships, your work, what your overall kind of life purpose and journey is. And so we pull all of those facets together to try to get this really comprehensive picture of what's going on, and then using that to help you make better decisions. Right. And so I'm all about what I talk about, the better body, right? Not the perfect body, not some ideal body that society says you should have, right? But better is just an orientation, again, of taking responsibility and making conscious choices, because at the end of the day, right, you want your body working for you rather than against you. And this has so much to do with our own mindsets, our beliefs. And so we need to unravel all of those, and we begin to learn, the nuances of what's going on, and we begin to learn how to cooperate and work with our body. And I see that as being one of the fundamental issues, is that we often live in a very disembodied way. Right? Our minds are very cut off from our bodies, right? Our thoughts are a million miles away. This is especially true when we're sucked into our technology. It's like our awareness is getting projected out into the internet and other places, and we lose the awareness of what's happening for us at this other level, energetically, in terms of our emotions, our feelings, our sensations. And so a lot of what I do is helping people then also kind of come back to learn to listen to their body, develop that mindfulness, to develop that ability to feel and not just to think. And so it's working across all of these modalities, again, in service of people's health and happiness.
Yeah. Thank you again, Jeffrey, thank you for what you do and what you're doing for the society and everyone else, because I think we need people like you times by what, a million, to make it a better place. So thank you again, Jeffrey, for that. So what does it mean by, let me ask you this before we get to the details of the show today. What does it mean by mental health and emotional health, or is there a difference?
Yeah. I love that question of, is there a difference? And I think, yes, there is a distinction, at least on paper, and especially when it comes to, psychology and the sciences. Like, we need to operationalize these terms so we can study them, and that's helpful. But when it comes to our lived experience, and this is where I always, want to begin with what is true for you, and at the end of the day, that lived experience is this mishmash of the physical, the emotional, the mental, right? And there's all of these complex sort of feedback and feed forward loops, right? It's not so simple that, we have a thought and then the thought produces a feeling in our body, or vice versa. We have a feeling and that feeling kind of manifests itself into a thought. Both of those are true. There's this bidirectional kind of feedback loop that's intermediated by our body and the energy moving through our body, that what's going on with the environment and how our body is interacting or taking in stimuli from that, and how all of that then fits into our pre-existing mental models of the world, right? And how we're making sense of what's happening to us. And so I do think there's value in kind of parsing those pieces apart, right? And you can do work at each of those levels, and so I ask you, hey, what are you feeling in your body right now, right? And if you just pause and you slow down and you take a breath and you just try to notice, without getting caught up in the language part, without getting caught up in the sort of cognitive part. And this is a skill, because a lot of times, like, our schools and a lot of our education system don't really teach us this ability to kind of experience ourselves somatically, because, we're so highly cognitive and intellectual. So you need to develop that first, right? And then you can also begin to pull apart the cognitive piece, as you said, the mental part, right? I mean, it's pretty clear when you're having a bad day, if you're down, depressed, if you're low, right? If you're having a lot of intrusive thoughts, if you're distracted, like, there's so many things, like, they just show up and they're obvious when they're happening. And so it's like noticing those patterns, but equally also noticing those other times. I think the other thing that we don't do very well is appreciating the joyful moments, right? Letting ourselves absorb those moments of bliss, those moments of happiness, actually truly feeling the pleasure that's present, right? Because our minds tend to fixate on the negative stuff, right? The mind tends to pay attention to things that could be threats, things that could be problems, right? Things that are dangerous or painful. And that's just sort of how they have evolved to keep us safe. So, it's a beautiful thing when your mind does that, right? There's a very good reason. However, we also need to train our attention to, again, pay attention to the positive things that are present, because there's often a lot of them that we are missing.
Thank you again, Jeffrey, for that. So let me ask you this: the way the world is going, we're going too fast, okay? And we're trying to catch up to get the knowledge to be faster, or catch up, okay, is the word, I think. Do you think that we're walking faster or thinking faster, or the other way around, or are we just trying to catch up? I mean, we're just going in circles. So what are your thought process on that?
Well, the ways in which that question lands for me is that, yes, I agree. Our minds, and again, I'm using the word mind to kind of refer to that kind of discursive thinking, logical, linguistic process that goes on, right? But our mind, right, is moving very quickly. And there's no question that the world we live in is also sort of exacerbating that quickness of mental movement, all right? And I think what's happening when you say we're struggling to catch up is actually, right, our mind is getting way ahead of where our body is, right? And our body is always then trying to catch up and say, hey, hold on a second, right? Don't leave me over here, right? There's something going on actually right now, right here, that's important. I want you to pay attention to it. But that voice from our body often gets ignored, gets repressed, gets pushed aside, because our mind is rushing, getting, faster and faster. A lot of, just dealing with the overwhelm of information that all of us are kind of drowning in with the media and other things. And so I think, part of it is just allowing your mind to be where your body is, right? I talk about moving at the speed of body, moving at the speed of breath, right? That is something like a meditation practice really helps you develop that, because once you can come back into your body, then you can start to bring your body along with the mind, as opposed to having your thoughts race so far ahead and then the other parts of your being are elsewhere.
Thank you again, Jeffrey, for that. Let me ask you this: we work 8 hours, whatever we're doing, or 10 hours. We only have certain time of the day. Our body needs rest, and the body needs sleep at the same time. Okay, and we're still trying to catch up. And then when we try to catch up, we say to ourselves that I'm really tired. I don't have any brain power to do this. What are your thought processes on that? Should we take minimum breaks, minimum sleep throughout the day, so then we don't get much tired towards the end? Or is it the other way around? What are your thought processes?
Okay. So, I really hear kind of two questions embedded in here, right? And one is having to do with the fact that we live in a very sleep deprived culture, right? And that sleep deprivation is coming as a result, as you said, of the speed at which the world is moving, coming as a result of the pressures that we are all under to perform, right? And to provide, and financially and otherwise. And so there's a lot of pressures, right, that eat into our sleep. And I am a huge, all right, proponent of protecting your sleep, right? Getting the right amount and the high quality sleep, I think, is probably the most important thing that you can do to begin to take control of your health, right? Because you want to wake up in the morning with your battery 100% charged, and most people are waking up with a 50% charge, and by the time they get to noon, their battery is drained. And as you said, then what do, right? You still got to get through the rest of the day, and that's where people tend to then reach for some caffeine and stimulants and food or other things to kind of just push themselves to the end, and it just perpetuates this cycle of exhaustion. Right now, of course, there are sleep problems like insomnia and other things. So just putting those things aside, but just for like that, the regular person, right, who's just simply just probably not getting as much sleep or as good quality sleep as they could. So I think that's on one hand very much a social problem, a problem that all of us are embedded in. All right, and then you ask the question of like, well, like what do we do about that? Should we take naps? Should we use other things? And that feeling of exhaustion is the other question of like energy, right? I think every single person on the planet wants to feel energized, right? When you wake up, when you go through your day, right, you want energy. Like it is this most valuable resource, and it's great when we have it, right? And it's pretty terrible when we don't. And now the question of like, where does that energy come from, right? Sleep definitely is the big thing that is going to recharge that battery for the energy. All right. But the other pieces of nutrition, all right, of self-talk, of self-expression, all of these things can either recharge your battery or drain them. Right. And especially big on the nutrition piece, I find a lot of people, a poor diet can totally drain your energy, right? Taxing your digestive system. If you're not getting the right vitamins, minerals, micronutrients, then your body actually, right, cannot produce the neurotransmitters it needs to, cannot produce the hormones or the other compounds that it needs to actually at the cellular level give your body the energy that it needs. So sometimes it's just a matter of cleaning up your diet, or some sort of strategic supplementation can help with the energy piece, can also help with the sleep. But then the other behavioral pieces, I say just the one thing is just getting to bed earlier. I think, that would probably be, if I'm going to leave you here with one thing and you're like, this is all I got out of this conversation. I'd say for most people, and I recognize that, there are some people that tend to be night owls and just do their best work at then. But for, it seems like from my understanding, the majority of the population right, does better getting to bed earlier. And what happens usually in those late night hours are not very helpful anyway. We're kind of just distracting ourselves with media, with food, with other things that ultimately are not really fulfilling us, all right, but kind of just numbing us out from the exhaustion that we are experiencing from living in the world. All right.
Yeah.
And really the best thing we could be doing is getting a good quality night's sleep.
Yeah. Thank you again, Jeffrey, for that. So let me ask you this. Tell me one major thing that people, they come up to you for help.
Yeah. So, the first kind of obvious one is weight loss, which is a huge thing that, people deal with. But like surrounding that are these other issues that I think often get a little bit pushed aside, especially because I do most of my work with men. And that has to do with body image issues, right? Like lack of confidence, right? Self-confidence in their body, lack of trust in their body, feeling kind of out of control with their eating habits, just, a lot of self-hatred, self-loathing, and these are things that, we don't often give a lot of voice to. And this is where we're kind of drifting back into that mental health arena. And especially again, with men, there is a lot of, self-hatred that kind of goes under the radar because there's not a lot of space for men to talk about their relationship with their body and the ways in which they love it or hate it and the ways in which it's frustrating the heck out of them. And so that's something that I specifically, spend a lot of time working with people on.
Yeah. So I think the weight loss for any gender, I think nowadays is an issue, right? Because now we're in a lockdown mode, right? And we're still in lockdown mode in most of the countries in the world so far. And I think US is the one that slowly we're getting into the hybrid mode. But the 18 months that we have been stuck, or the 10 months that we've been stuck, there has not been much of fitness at all, right? So I think eating habit is one thing that we're focusing on. You think eating habit is more important versus fitness, or does it go in hand? What are your thought process on that?
Yeah, I love this question, because it's so common to want to pit two of these things against each other, right? What's more important, right? Diet or exercise? What's more important? Diet or sleep? At the end of the day, all of these things matter. All of these things contribute to your overall state of well-being. And now I'd say, it depends on your specific goals. What are your aims? What are your dreams? Okay. Because that's going to kind of say, okay, maybe we need to prioritize one of these, facets of wellness. In general, though, I do believe that, paying attention to your diet is going to make a bigger difference in most people's lives, right? Because the food that we're eating or the foods that we're not eating, right, ultimately, right, become who you are, right? Both at the physical, anatomical level, but then at the energetic level we talked about, right? And they can really kind of make or break your health. I truly believe that, food is our best medicine when we pay attention to where it's coming from, how it's grown, how it's prepared, how much we're eating, who we are as we're eating it. Are we eating in a really stressed way? Are we eating in a slower, more mindful way? Are we enjoying our meals? Are we getting pleasure from them? Are we using food to fill some sort of other emotional void or distract ourselves, right? Emotional eating in that sense is, certainly a big issue for a lot of people, just using food as a tool to feel a certain way, right? As opposed to a tool for energy, for freedom, for health, for healing. Yeah. And so, that's where, again, I think the other thing, if I want to leave people with something to, take away from our conversation, other than, protecting your sleep, is just like doing a little bit more cooking, right? Or bringing food back into that realm, because that's another thing that we've become so disconnected from in our culture with our, and there's nothing wrong with, ordering takeout or going out to dinner, but just like when we are constantly outsourcing our meals to the point where we really have no idea where that food came from and who cooked it and even what's in it, we lose a lot of control over what we're putting on our body, and we lose a lot of connection with the world, right? In the ways in which, our body and the food that we eat is what connects us with nature, with every other creature on the planet, is what pulls us into this web of life. And is really from there, we can begin to source a very different sort of well-being.
Right. So with that statement, I think you're talking about processed food and non-processed food, right? And you're talking about organic food. So I think people need to understand that natural is the way to go. But yes, there are certain people, they are fine with processed food because that's all they can, they want to just indulge themselves, which is totally fine also. But then there's repercussions when we do that. So people, they do have to make some decisions, whatever their decisions is in life, on those aspects. One last question, Jeffrey, if you don't mind. Now, kids have gone through so much stress in this last 10, 18 months, right? In the school and getting into the milestones, a person who is in middle school going to high school, and high school going college, and elementary going to middle school, many different aspects of this, right? And the people who just started school, which is in kindergarten and first grade and second grade, right? All those small and big milestones. Okay. For example, when you're leaving high school, I remember back in the days, we used to have a rag day. We make sure that we throw some toilet papers and enjoy and saying, I'm leaving high school and going to college type of thing, right? Those milestones are kind of gone nowadays, right? So what are your thought processes on that? How does the mental state is happening right now for kids from your point of view?
Yeah. I appreciate you highlighting the sort of loss of milestones, and something that I talk about a lot, kind of analogous, is this loss of rites of passage and rituals, just generally as our society becomes more secularized, more mechanized, and just sort of drifts away from a lot of these traditions that had built into them a lot of rites of passage. We begin to lose these structures that really give shape to our lives. And I think they're really important. And I think that's created a bit of a void that leads to a sense of purposelessness, meaninglessness, a sense of sort of just confusion, aimlessness. And this is sort of what I see as being the big issue, both in my own life, and especially when I look at people younger than myself, at kids and younger generation, how are they, thinking about the future? And if they don't have, especially the guidance from these older generations, because there isn't that intergenerational mixing, there isn't that passing down of traditions quite in the same way. Maybe there isn't that participation in activities that bring different people at different ages together, right? Because I think that's where the glue of society that, again, kind of helps frame this overall life journey that we're all on begins to unravel. And so where do we go now? Well, we go to Google and we go to the internet, and again, there's amazing content out there, but it's a choose your own adventure. And so that puts a tremendous power and a tremendous responsibility in the hands of our youth. And it's just a question of, guidance. And I think maybe we could be doing a better job, guiding young people, helping them understand that kind of hero's journey, and to see, the challenges in their life as opportunities to grow, right? And to coach them, to give them mentorship. And this is, what I do in my work of just trying to be a support, to try to help give people resources, right? And I say that, more in the sense of internal resources, right? The right tools, perspective, mindsets, practices, right? So that they can face all of these things, so that they don't end up, in a situation that feels overwhelming, or they don't end up in a situation where they feel that they don't matter, or they feel that their life is meaningless, because that sort of hopelessness really, really eats away at our hearts and our minds. And so just coming back, and letting people know that they do matter, right? Their story matters, their happiness matters, and beginning to work there, I think is where we can start to then, really flourish together.
Yeah. Thank you again, Jeffrey, for that. Before you leave today, and thank you again for coming on my show, do you have any last words or any comments for Back to Basics, and how did you enjoy Back to Basics for being here?
Yeah, it's been great to get to, revisit some of these things. And again, it's all about the foundation, the fundamentals, right? We've talked about of the diet, the rest, exercise, and it doesn't even have to be structured exercise, but just movement, right? Stress management, all of these pieces that come together, right, to support your well-being. And I just want to encourage people to begin this process, right, of making conscious decisions and taking responsibility for those decisions, because that is ultimately what is going to steer you, all right, in that direction. All right. And if you really want to live a life, again, full of energy and without a whole lot of pain in your body or pain in your mind that is preventing you from giving your gift to the world, right, then it starts right here with how you do those basics every single day.
Yeah. Thank you again, Jeffrey, for coming on my show and making this brighter and to make people understand that mental health and fitness health and eating health and everything else related to health is so needed in this world. Yes, it is tough that what we have gone through, but you know what? We're slowly getting away from that hurdle, and now how to catch up with sleep and less sleep and more sleep. It all depends on which one you want to take. But thank you again, Jeffrey, for making us understand that.
Yeah, you're so welcome, because at the end of the day, none of us are meant to go on this journey alone. And so recognizing that is both okay to ask for help, and it's really important that we support each other and work together is the only way that I see that we're going to be able to actually improve, the health of the world.
Yeah, thank you again, Jeffrey, for coming here. So thank you again.
Welcome.
So guys, we spoke with Jeffrey today, and we talked about the basics of mental health and fitness health and nutrition, and how we're surviving from this whole pandemic that we have gone through last year. And this year, what we're going to do is we're going to think a little differently, which is what? Focus on yourself, focus on mental health, focus on nutrition, and think better, sleep better, run better, walk better, whatever it is, just try to do better. And there is a quote of the day from Back to Basics, and hopefully Jeffrey will like that. And here's the quote of the day: the greatest wealth is health. People have told you that health is wealth, right? So it's the same process, what we're trying to do, and try to do as much as I can in this episode. And that's what I did. I try to do, I think. So guys, as usual, as always, what do I always say at the end of the episode? Remember, everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what I did today, guys. Guys, take care, God bless, and I will see you next week. Please subscribe as much as you can. Good, bad, ugly, either way, it'll make my show stronger. And the content is going to be great. The guest is going to be awesome. And the third of all, as always, the host is going to be the best. Guys, take care, God bless, and I'll see you next week. Next week's episode on Back to Basics.
Make a difference. And for some people, their doctor might recommend raising their legs, or whether it's before bed or while you're sleeping a little bit. And I think that goes into another important thing for me to talk about with sleep is, particularly in the United States, it's a little bit more difficult with the way our insurance works. But I think sleep offers you an excellent opportunity to develop a relationship with your healthcare practitioner, whether it's your primary care physician or calling your insurance, or if you have a job with like an EAP, an employee assistance program. Like if you have questions about your sleep, and like you were saying, like you find yourself sleeping more and more or having trouble getting up, it is a great time to reconnect. You can say, especially if a lot of people I know, personally, I'm like this, I can be a bit avoidant when it comes to like getting my physical or doing these things. This is a great non-loaded thing to talk to your physician about, or to call your insurance company and say, hey, what can I do? I'm having this trouble sleeping, or looking into that, because then you can find out, hey, let's see it. Are there any underlying causes that are causing this? Or is it just something I need to find some structure to deal with?